Thanks. I think we have a question over there. Please identify yourself before the question.
Yeah, John Cooley, Procter & Gamble. Mm-hmm. This is to Judy. I may buy a machine, it comes to the floor, and it has a Rockwell automation controller on it. I buy another piece of equipment right next to it, install it, it has a Siemens controller on it. But I, as a customer, want these two machines to communicate peer-to-peer to one another, yet they won't. Could you explain to me why? And do you think that'll ever change?
Oh,
so I didn't build the controls, so I can't exactly tell you why they don't talk to one another.
This is interesting.
But I'll try. You can put G controls in, and they can.
Communications. How do we? Yeah, go ahead.
You know, you think about those controls. Those controls are harnessing lots of information off that machine, right? There's probably sensors on that machine. It's telling its position, its output rate, its flow, all those attributes that talk about the machine and the machine efficiency itself. It's that layer that you can put on top of with the software that extracts time series data from those machines. You historize it. You think about that in big data, industrial big data, with the layer then of the analytics or workflow or information, whatever type of analytics.
I need to interrupt real quick. I'm interested initially in horizontal peer-to-peer communication for coordinated control and so forth. I'm also interested in the analytics from above, which is great, but I need those two machines to communicate directly with one another, and they don't. And I'm trying to figure out how to get the big suppliers out there to enable that communication. So that's the perspective I'm looking to you and to your colleagues on either side of you to share.
Yeah, I mean, one recommendation from my side would naturally be the first machine just change the control. And it works perfectly. But that would be another... no. Kidding apart. Siemens, I think this is about 8-9 years ago, we had developed a new communication protocol, Profibus at the time. For us it was clear there is just no way that, although we believe it's the best decision, but there's just no way that you find in any manufacturing site everything from one provider. Yeah. So what we did was all this IP, we gave it into an organization, the Profibus user organization, which has now the full IP of this, and every company in the world can become a member. Yeah. Today, this is Profinet. By the way, Siemens PLM software did exactly the same thing with standardizing on the so-called JT protocol, which is now an official ISO protocol. I think really we as providers, we have to provide this openness, and sometimes it means really bringing in IP, and at the time it was it was almost 100 million investment, which was owned IP, which was given into this organization. Yeah. I think that's the approach. Openness is really the name of the game here.
Yeah. Before I come to you, Blake, I think here maybe the question relates to now we are talking so much machine-to-machine communication. Is connected devices, will bring some kind of standardization, and I do want to mention to you, in fact, we had a press conference yesterday at 1 o'clock. There is a communication standard companies are trying to, in fact, actually OPC is working closely with the Telecommunications Association, TIA, and they are actually working on a standard they call TR50. So, but I think hopefully, I think they're trying to get it ready pretty quickly too. Yes, as we are moving toward this M2M machine-to-machine communication, we do need some kind of standardization. And because we are going to need to talk to all kinds of devices and so forth. With that, Blake, you want to add something more to it?
Sure. Well, I think the question illustrates kind of, to keep us from getting too high in the sky, there's the practical implementation that always is the test of whether the new concepts that we're talking about up here are going to provide useful work on the floor. So thanks for bringing us back to earth a little bit with the basic question. And to answer it, I'll tell you that the Rockwell automation approach is to standardize and to standardize on Ethernet, because we see an increased convergence, as I mentioned before, between commercial devices as well as industrial devices, and Ethernet's going to win there, whether it's wired or wireless. And so going forward, to be able to communicate through standard unmodified Ethernet, we believe is going to be the best way to have that interoperability between disparate devices. Now, short term, if you have products that don't talk Ethernet, then being able to bridge the communications, one controller to the other, or to be able to provide scanners that will communicate with the end devices through a proprietary protocol is also a choice. And Rockwell has a lot of partners that provide that connectivity into our basic system when they're not using the same communication protocol.
Yeah. Thanks. We have a question here, please.
Bill Leiden, editor of Automation.com and ISA's InTech magazine. Shifting gears a little bit, we could spend the afternoon on that other topic. For Patricia, when you buy automation controllers, you're looking for some life cycle for that controller. And I'm curious what that is, but also if vendors give you their statement of life cycle and you demand that, do you look further beyond that to say, okay, if this company's had this product in the market for 5 years, 6 years, you can pretty well predict your support costs are going to dramatically increase at the end of the time of your life cycle from point of purchase? What is your time of purchase, and do you look at that other aspect rather than just their statement?
Great question. A couple parts. When we look to replace technology in a system as large as ours, it's a big decision. And we look for standardization, we look for consistency. And so, yes, we are one of those users that 25 years sounds young. Okay, 30 and 40 looks even better, and I say that very objectively. But also, kidding aside, we do look at life cycle. I think it's helped us. It's very tempting. It's very appealing to think about what's it cost to put it in the first day. And even if you're doing it 100 times or 1,000 times, that first day can drive your behavior. Well, as you just said, the reality is many, many years, many, many sites. And so when we look to change technology, sometimes we quote-unquote buy a product. Oftentimes we will select a vendor, okay, that is knowledgeable in the area, that it might be buy the product off the shelf, it might be co-develop it, but it's with an intent for long-term robustness, reliable performance, reliable service, and a mutual respect. Right or wrong, we consider ourselves a company full of pretty smart engineers and scientists, and partnering with another vendor where there's mutual respect goes a long way. And so we select vendors, we select products, we do it with the long term. And I would tell you that actually ARC, we've worked with them recently to help us understand what are the approaches others use for vendor selection, for product selection. And we've actually found some of the blinded benchmarking experiences they've shared with us has been very helpful. We're right now in an era where we've got a lot of technologies hitting obsolescence, a lot of technologies where we want to really substantially increase the value. A lot of money right now going into controls and optimization, and so we want to make well-informed decisions that we'll look back 10, 15, 20 years and feel good about.
Excellent. Thank you. Now, again, shifting the gears a little bit, our industry needs more young engineers and lots more new blood. What are you doing to bring them in, train them, and certainly they come with the different approaches, their own way to work and so forth. And let me start with Blake. You want to start us off?
Sure. Just a few words. It really does begin with the attraction of talent into our part of the world, and that begins early. It begins with STEM education in high school and earlier. It begins with programs that engage them and they find interesting. First Robotics, which several of us are heavy sponsors of, is a great way to bring people in. Project Lead the Way and others to be able to show young people who have an interest in math and science, that there's a lot of exciting ways to actually make it do work and to make things move in the world of automation. And so the attraction is an important part of it. That proceeds on through the college years into internships, and obviously giving people a chance to test the waters for companies to have a look at these people, and probably more importantly for students to be able to see if this is an area that appears to be an attractive career for them. I think once you bring people in, a couple of key things that are most important in those early years are, first, to be able to have what I'll call affinity groups for those young engineers to be a part of. And I'm not just talking about diversity, I'm talking about being around people who have similar interests, similar ages as they do, rather than throwing them into a completely different environment that isn't people that they can build social relationships with, because they expect that as well as a place to earn money, they expect to have a lot of their friendships develop there as well. The second piece is the critical importance of their first-line manager and keeping them in that business, somebody who recognizes that it's an important part of their job to nurture their young talent. And those are the things that we found most important in those first few years of our new employees' career with us.
Let me ask Kohori-san. You also have a challenge in Japan, try to attract people. How are you doing it there?
Sure. In Japan, our population decreasing, so to get the youngsters becomes difficult. So internally, we have typical activities, innovation fair, that is organized by R&D people, and share the activity to all the employees, sales and engineering other people. And that is done by the one day, and second day is open to the university students to show what we are doing, what our technology will be. So that try to attract the people to encourage to join these industries. Other than that, we have the future scenario workshop around the world, working together with academia and also future-oriented industry organizations. And we try to validate our future scenarios. And that part of the scenario is validated, also presented to the innovation fair to attract the people what kind of future we are looking for. That is our major activities.
Okay, good. Go ahead, Jeff.
Two other things I'd just add on to what Blake talked about is, first, it's about giving those folks that hands-on experience. So whether it be in a training program where there is an assignment, a rotational assignment that gets them that real-life experience, coupling that with continued education and learning is one way that we go about it in GE. The second that we've been doing is, most of, and I think about my 15-year-old daughter, most of the kids coming out of college today have experienced social media in some way, shape, or form. When you come into a big company where you have this huge potential network at your fingertips, they want to be able to access those potential mentors or coaches or somebody that they can collaborate with in a thoughtful way for them to do their job. So we continue to develop internal tools to foster that type of collaboration through somewhat of an internal social networking site that allows them to engage in those groups, engage with peers, mentors, or leaders to help them develop as a leader themselves and as an individual who's contributing to the technology or the output.
Go ahead, Doug.
Yeah, the things that have been discussed already are things that we do as well. And I put a significant amount of money every year into education and outreach, and especially education. But I'm going to hit it from a slightly different angle from what we do. It's the teachers. We don't have much trouble attracting kids to spaceflight. I mean, how many kids wouldn't want to go to Mars, right? How many in here would want to go? No, never mind. So it's really easy to attract kids to that. The key is to have educated educators that can keep the kids engaged. So what we do, we actually put, I'd say half of my education budget goes into educating teachers. We produce course materials so that all they have to do is call us and say, hey, I've got a group of 6th graders, 5th graders, 12th graders. You know, what do you have as far as Mars curriculum? What do you have as far as astrobiology curriculum? You know, and we have curriculum available for them. We do educator workshops at all of our launches, and we will bring in 200 or 300 teachers, and we do it competitively so that they actually don't even have to pay their own way to these activities. So they come in, they'll spend 3 or 4 days with our education folks, get not only curriculum, but get ideas of how to teach the kids, how to encourage the kids, walk away with enormous amounts of resources, and also get to see a launch at the same time. And if you motivate the teachers, and a launch will do it, motivating their kids in their classrooms just comes naturally. The second piece to this is underrepresented kids. I have an enormous amount of money that goes into Native American education, as well as underprivileged schools. One of the things we did for Curiosity Landing, which was kind of a fun example, is there's a public school in New York City that's, I think it's in Queens, I believe. I can't remember the name of it because New York has this really exciting way to name their schools by number. So it's like public school number 327 or something like that. And we actually got together with an artist in New York City, and we had the kids paint a mural on the side of the building of the school itself. And they painted this mural, and we were able to bring people in, like my executive officer, to spend a day painting with the kids. We had a couple of pop stars come in and that painted with the kids. Buzz Aldrin, I called him and said, would you? And Buzz went up and he spent a half a day painting this mural with these kids. We have more kids who never really even thought about space travel that now are off in the STEM direction. This was a middle school in this case. So getting to the teachers and the educators, including at the state level, is where we think we've gotten the biggest bang for the buck.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Probably none of us has the same excitement you can create like you can do, Doug. But what we actually feel there's also excitement when we bring in team members that have been with us 3 to 5 years, and we bring them into high schools and talk there about how attractive it is to go into a manufacturing or engineering way, because they represent the company, and they talk to the kids and can interlink enormously well. Now we add to this some, as you know well, Andy, some elements like the Siemens competition through our Siemens Foundation, where kids get scholarships up to $100,000. So they are really the brightest kids you can imagine come in there. And then I mentioned already, we train through our Siemens PLM initiative, we train 1.2 million students worldwide on the systems, which is definitely critical. But let me add one aspect to it where we leverage today the experience from Germany. Germany, relatively to the US, has about 10 times more participants in apprenticeship programs than in the US. And this goes in the direction what we talked about before. It's not only about getting the theoretical knowledge. You have to have the practical knowledge. If you want to answer the challenges of tomorrow in mechatronics, you need the practical knowledge. And these were these kind of programs that we do in Charlotte today, and we start similar programs in Atlanta and Georgia.
Good. Patty, would you like your comment?
What more is there to say?
Yeah,
I think, getting the hearts and minds of kids and teachers at a young age is critical. That everybody wants to be a scientist up until about the age of 10 or 11. And then you think about Wall Street, you think about playing basketball, there's a lot of other alternatives. And so I think bringing math and science from a personal level is critical for all of us. And whether we're managers, we're engineers, we're operators is just key. And so I know it's consistent, and to tell you the truth, I think there's a lot of similarity up here. Getting our people out there and helping students and parents and teachers know what do engineers do, what do scientists do. All of us have really cool stories to tell. One of the big challenges associated with our type of people is we're very high standard and most of us are introverted. And so we take what we do for granted. Okay, and so one of the things that we've been doing is to reach out to the community. We've got young folks, we've got more mature employees working in the schools. Also, once somebody comes in the door, I would tell you, when you look for the best and the brightest in the universities, you're going to find them. but how do you keep them? How do you motivate them? And we talk a lot about the senior folks need to impart the wisdom with the junior folks. Well, you know what? My 10 and 12-year-old kids sure told me the things that I could be doing better. And you know what? 40 and 50s can listen to 20s and 25s. And so I think not only sharing the experience, listening to the new ideas, embracing the new technology, then that bright person who walked in the door wants to stay there and wants to build that future, and it's incredibly empowering. And so then you're not worried about managing risk. You're saying, how do I take all these good ideas and turn them into something that's good for the person as well as a company? And I think the other piece that we've been working very, very hard on, being a global company with a lot of locations, developing a career in ExxonMobil is not easy. It's rough on families, rough on dual careers, and so we've put a lot of time into improving our policies, improving our flexible activities. We're building a huge center down in North Eustis. I mean, to take away some of the needs for moves, to take away some of the challenges for people and employees, and that very much resonates with the generation of students and future engineers that are coming out of school. So a lot of things going on. I think we've all got a number of examples, but it's good to see the industry commitment to the future of engineering and science.
Yeah. I think this is a great place for us to end.